Welcome to the Relatively Damaged podcast by damaged parents, where destitute, homeless, longing people come to learn maybe, just maybe, we're all a little bit damaged. Someone once told me it's safe to assume 50% of the people I meet are struggling and feel wounded in some way. I would venture to say it's closer to 100%. Every one of us is either currently struggling or has struggled with something that made us feel less than, like we aren't good enough, we aren't capable, we are relatively damaged, and that's what we're here to talk about. In my ongoing investigation of the damaged self, I want to better understand how others view their own challenges. Maybe it's not so much about the damage. Maybe it's about our perception and how we deal with it. There is a deep commitment to becoming who we are meant to be. How do you do that? How do you find balance after a damaging experience? My hero is the damaged person, the one who faces seemingly insurmountable odds to come out on the other side whole. Those who stare directly into the face of adversity with unyielding persistence to discover their purpose. These are the people who inspire me to be more fully me, not in spite of my trials, but because of them. Let's hear from another hero. Today's topic includes sensitive material which may not be appropriate for children. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as advice. The opinions expressed here were strictly those of the person who gave them. Today we're going to talk with Tony Lynch. He has many roles in his life: son, brother, father, survivor, and more. We'll talk about how once he put his sister on the roof because he was mad, felt alone, participated in gangs, went to jail, was homeless, became an alcoholic, found a way to stop drinking, and became the father for his son in a way he desperately needed for himself. Let's talk. Welcome to Relatively Damaged, Tony. We're glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so we were just talking a little bit about struggles with hands and pain.
And, listening to your story and seeing, what they have for you and everything, I was like, wow, I can relate to the pain that you've been in and everything, because I too had to have surgery on my nerves. And fortunately for me, there was actually a medical procedure
that could help you, right?
Yeah,
whereas with me, there's just isn't.
Yeah. And that really still just baffles me well, not really. And it comes, like you said, I too had my dreams crushed when it came down to the medical industry as well. And but in some areas they do excel. But in some, I think they still need some work on.
Yeah, definitely. So now, when your response to me, which I love it when I don't get a solid answer. I had one person answer what's been your biggest struggle, and she literally answered being a human, and that made me laugh because how much truth is in that. And your answer is kind of similar. Loss. That's so broad. What in your life was your biggest struggle?
Oh, well, I tell people I've been grieving for 30 years. And I just now realized that. And what I mean by that is that I've endured almost every loss there could ever be. I've lost all three of just buried my last grandmother. So all of my grandmothers, which I've had the honor and the privilege to have known throughout my life. And they were a big, huge influence on me as well. Taught me how to cook, taught me the fundamentals about being a man. And they pretty much let me explore me being me. But they understood that I was a different kid. I've always been alone, even though I have a sister, I have good friends, but I've always felt alone in the world, so to speak. Never understood why. I've lost both parents. I've lost a younger brother, and I've lost a son.
So what was your first loss, and how old were you when that happened?
My first loss officially was my grandmother, and I was in my 20s when I lost her. She passed away through diabetes.
Okay.
And it just, it eventually did take her. And then it went in reverse from there. So we lost the youngest grandmother up till the oldest grandmother. And I remember this, my great grandmother, she was 101 when she passed away.
Oh, wow.
I was still in my 20s at that time. So I lost them back to back. Every year we lost one. And so then after that, they were in Virginia. I was in Colorado. I had flew back to Colorado and just kind of stayed to myself for a little bit. Throughout that time, let's see, I went to prison at the age of 24, and I seen a couple good friends of mine get killed in prison. And during the time I was in prison, I lost, well, let's see, 4 friends, and another good friend outside of prison had passed away. And when I got out of prison, I lost my grandfather shortly after that. My aunt suffered an overdose and passed away, a heroin overdose. And I lost the uncle. He fell off a ferry in Louisiana, and they found him further down in another state, actually, some years later. He found him
Wow.
out of the current.
So was the first loss, what was that like emotionally? What was that feeling like? And then maybe go through if that changed or didn't change throughout as you continued to experience these losses, because it sounds to me like it was almost like one after another consistently for a long period of time.
It was very consistent after that. Far as the emotional aspect, inside I was tore up. But as we know, when it comes down to loss and men, we're taught to suck it up. We're taught to not to show those emotions and things like that. So it affected me. I became angry. I became very angry. And it benefited me at the time because of the lifestyle that I was living. I was in the games, and it was real easy for me to not express those emotions or do it in a way to where people thought it looked cool, because when you're angry, you're looking for fights all the time. So that's what I did. I fought all the time. We have what we call rivals, or what most people may say enemies, and things like that. So I adapted those emotions towards that. I didn't have to break down. All I had to do was fight.
Okay, so you're sad and you're angry and you're hurting inside. Can you even put words? I know it's hard. Can you put words to what that physically felt like inside of you? Empty, broken.
Well, I try to stay away from the word broken, because what I found out with the work that I do now, that if you tell people that they're broken, they will always react as if they're broken. I was hurt. Once I realized I was hurt, I started seeking ways of healing.
Okay.
But that came somewhere down the line, further down the line in my life. But at the time, I was empty. I was looking for something. I was looking for my grandmother. She was my best. She was that influence on me. She was my protector. She was my friend. She made sure that when I was a kid that we always ate. She was grandmother. It was big mama. So she taught me how to cook. She taught me some fundamentals of life at an early age. And things that stuck with me. She taught me about family history and things like that. And when she was gone, like they say, the women are the glue to your family. I watched my family fall apart. My grandmother, like my uncles and stuff, everybody just went their own way.
So after the first grandma died, everyone scattered.
Went and did their own thing. And then when Big Mama passed away, it just continually got worse. And then when my great grandmother passed away, that's when the family was just, we fell apart. We fell apart. And my mother was the oldest, so she used to look out for the siblings. So my mother took on that role. She was like, I'm making sure that everybody's taken care of.
Her siblings or you kids?
Oh, her siblings, because my mother is the oldest out of 15.
Whoa, that's awesome.
The oldest out of 15. So imagine the stories that I used to hear from my uncles and aunties, about my mother. My mother was 21 when she had me. So there's stories there, So to watch my family fall from there, then watch my mother try to hold everything together while she's trying to raise me. And it was just crazy. It was so crazy, because my mother, they used to always call my mother, "What you doing?" And she goes, "You know what?" She pointed the finger, "You know what? I'll do this to you." And so there was a certain level of respect. The stories were always, "Don't let your mother hit you. She's too heavy-handed." I learned the hard way on that one.
Oh, okay. Now I've got to hear the story. Tell me.
So, I'm the oldest out of me and my sister, and my sister is the second oldest. She's 2 years younger than me, so I'm the guinea pig. I'm the one that I felt that she experimented on. I'm gonna beat you up, and hopefully you live.
Your little sister is going to beat you up and.
No, my mother.
Oh,
uh,
your mom. Okay,
yeah.
so.
Okay. So 2 years older than my sister, and this is one incident where it's just funny when you actually think about it. So my sister used to always get me in trouble. 2 years
Right.
old, she's always into everything, all of my stuff. I was like, why can't they put you back in? Go away, type thing. And so she's always into stuff, I get blamed for it. So there was one instance where my sister got me in trouble. She got
Okay.
into my art supplies when we were kids. I was about 6. She was about 4. And so that was the one thing. Don't get into my art supplies. That's my passion. That's my love. And she got into them. She broke my crayons and took the markers and marked over everything. There was just, I mean, it was a mess. So automatically, my mother gets home and she sees this, and I get beat for it. So
Oh,
I was like, okay, I'm going to get her. So what I done, my mother had left and she was at the neighbor's house. And so I took my sister, and where we lived at, we had a little small roof on outside of our window. So I took her and put her outside the window and closed the window,
and
hoping
how old
that
is she?
she was about 4. So
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
Tony.
I was like, this is revenge at its finest. I'm gonna put her on the roof. If she goes over, she's just gonna fall down and hit the ground. It's a done deal, right?
Yeah.
Instead,
And how old? Wait, hold on. How old were you?
I was 6.
Okay. So valid in your mind. She's got to pay. She got you in trouble. You had some pain. She's got to pay the price.
My sister's going to listen to this and she's going to go, I knew he tried to kill me. Yeah, I didn't try to kill you. I just wanted you out of my hair. Stop getting my stuff and getting me beat. I realized at an early age that this was going to be a long term thing of me getting beat because of her. So I was like, put her outside the roof. She goes over the edge. It's okay. Well, she looked across the edge. She crawled to the edge of the little roof and she looked across and she sat back down. And my mother saw her when she looked across the edge and immediately runs upstairs and she opens up the windows and grabbed my sister. And man, that was my mother. Yeah, it hurt for a couple of days. So let's just put it that way. And
Were you
so,
angry at mom?
no, I was afraid of her.
Okay.
I was afraid of mom. My mom was 6'4". Okay, she was 6'4", and my mother was she was a tough cookie. She really was, but she had to. Where we grew up at, we grew up tough. We grew up fighting, and there was a certain amount of respect that children have for their elders, and so my mother instilled fear in me at an early age. When it came down to this, she goes, if you do not, if you can't do something, ask me. But if you do this, there has to be some sort of consequences for your actions.
Okay.
So if you did something good, the consequences were a lot of times good. But if you did something bad, they believed in whooping your butt, and that's what they did. But we grew up in an area where community was the number one thing. So it wasn't like I can get myself in trouble and I can be somewhere, and before I got home, my mother already knew,
So
or the rest of my family already knew.
I heard you say community was the number one thing. Was there a certain amount of safety in knowing that you had that, I'm going to say, village around you?
And that would be a correct word, is the village, because it takes a village to raise a kid. So I grew up in Newport News, Virginia, and those who don't know, Newport News is not the most richest of areas. It's pretty much considered a ghetto or the
Okay.
projects or whatever, right? So, but what people don't understand is that when you're in areas like that, it's not as bad as what you think it is. Like I was born in the 70s. So people back then actually cared. We can leave our doors unlocked. It sounds kind of strange when you talk about the projects and everything, but you can leave your door unlocked. Or if you needed to go to a neighbor and he was having a rough time of the month, you can get food from them. And so we grew up with food stamps. We grew up very, very poor. Christmas, but we made it work. It was a beautiful thing. We didn't have to have a whole lot because we was rich in the people that was around us. Growing up, we didn't hear about kids being snatched up or, put into human sex trafficking. You barely heard about child molestation and things like that. It was like if you heard about it, that was the first and last time you heard about it. The community came together, boom. No, this is not going to happen. They looked over us.
Like you were protected.
Yeah, we was protected. The community looked over us. Our families and stuff looked over everyone. So, I mean, it wasn't unusual to go down the street and know everybody in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
Played basketball together. We played football together. I mean, the kids, we rode bikes and roads and skateboards and stuff like that. We were typical kids growing up in a way that if you look back on it would seem,
Yeah.
you
So I'm
know,
just wondering because you also said earlier you felt alone. So did that loneliness start when grandma died, or do you think you had some of it like it was just part of who you are as you grew up?
it's always been a part of me. Most of my family would tell you, coming up, I always stayed alone. I didn't understand kids my age and the way that they thought. So, I used to watch what they do, and I stayed into books. I stayed into drawing. That was my passion. I've been doing it since I was 4 years old. And I wasn't a kid. I wasn't an athletic kid, you know. Really, I could play basketball, but hated it. I could play football, but hated it. It was something about I didn't want to do it. I was more of let me stay in my room and draw. But I've always been that way. Couldn't tell you
Right.
why, just always have been. So for me, growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, after a certain age, I just started staying away from people.
Mm.
I had a cousin that lived across town. I spent more time over there throughout my youth than I did anything else. And it just was like that my whole entire life.
So do you think that cousin just understood your need for maybe some silence and things like that? Or was it just you had a connection that maybe you can't put into words?
No, people just really left me alone.
Okay.
They just really left me alone to just no one really bothered with me too much.
Mm-hmm.
When I seen people, yes, it was all love and everything like that, but it wasn't like my uncles were coming to pick me up to go hang out with them or something like that, like they were doing my other cousins. My sister had her own set of friends, and the guys my age at that time, I just wasn't into the same things. I really wasn't.
Okay.
It was
So
like,
it's not that they weren't coming into your life, it's you weren't even interested. So it didn't, so it's okay. And from what I hear you saying, it sounds like you're saying it's okay that they didn't want to spend that time with me because I didn't really want it. I wanted to be in my world with my art and drawing and things like that.
yeah, and that's like it all stems from a disorder that I have, which I really
Okay.
didn't find out until I was older. So I have a sensory processing input disorder. So for a long time, the world was just very, very loud. Like it was loud. Like the things that I seen, the things that I observed, certain things made more sense to me than what it really actually should have. You know,
For example.
let's just say, well, when I was 6 years old, I guess this is where I get to say where I actually started experiencing grief. My neighbor across from where we used to live at, she had lost her twin sons in a fire. And
Ooh.
I knew her sons. It was a summer, and I remember where we lived at. I could look over right across, and I seen, we were all out, out and about and things like that. And I remember the mother coming outside, and she was talking with some of the other neighbors, and just all of a sudden there was a flame that flew out of her window. So in slow motion, it just looks crazy. You see the glass come out, and the flames are coming out. She turns around to run to the door. She goes to open, push the door open, and then the door pushed her back, and you can just hear kids screaming. I guess for most people it was shocking, but for me it was like, okay, these things happen. Like I had an understanding about it. And so don't ask me why, it just made sense. And which came up to a phrase to where I now tell people is that it's funny how you live the path of your purpose until you actually realize what your purpose is. So that's how I got into what I'm doing now today. But ever since then, I've experienced loss. And I just kind of dealt with it and was, because you look at the men in your neighborhood, you look at the people and things like that. And when you don't really have an example about how to express how you feel, because you grew up in a household where you're supposed to be tough, right? I'm the oldest, I'm the man of the house. And my father was around, and I watched my uncles, I watched my father, and when it came down to loss, It was like, you got to suck it up. You have to be a man.
So
You're
they
not.
didn't express emotion.
No,
They
none of that.
didn't say, "How are you doing?" The assumption is the loss happened, get over it, be done,
And
move on.
move on and move on. You
How?
got to suck it up
That
at
would
an
be
early
really
age.
hard. Yeah, because you're six,
Yeah,
right? When you're first, then when the twins pass away from the house fire,
yeah,
were
from
you
the house
six or
fire. I
you were
was 6 at
six?
the, and then there's when I was in middle school, there was a friend of mine who had cancer, and so first time you ever heard about a child having cancer, at least in our world, right? We didn't hear about things like that, you know. But he was a friend of mine. We went to school together. He had cancer in his leg. They ended up amputating his leg. And I remember walking with him down the hallways and stuff like that, and laughing. And he was always in good spirits. And about a month later, he ended up passing away because the cancer spread throughout his body. And so,
Was it a good
again,
friend then, or just
um,
a kid at school?
we grew up together. We was growing up
Okay.
together. I wouldn't say he was my best friend. I would say that I loved hanging out with him because of his personality. We had similar interests like drawing, and we was into the He-Man figures and things like that, and certain cartoons. So, he was somebody that I could relate to on a different level, and he was just a good all-around kid. He didn't get in no trouble. I mean, he was just fun to be around, and he made me feel as if I can understand him and he understood me because we pretty much did the same things. We stayed to ourselves. We was
So
like,
like accepted. He accepted you for who you were and how you were in that moment.
exactly. And so he was fun to hang around. When he passed away, I just, I had a best friend at the time. We never really talked about it. As a matter of fact, the day that he passed away, we went home and rode bikes.
Mm,
We didn't really talk about it, but you can tell it was affecting both of us, but we didn't know how to express that.
right.
So as time goes on, you experience these things. You experience grief in many facets,
Yeah.
and that's what happened. Yeah, and so bouncing around throughout the years, coming into my teenage years and everything, it was just different for me. For
Yeah.
most, I have a cousin. We talk about it now, yeah, and I have several cousins that we talk about, and all of them have a different perception of who I was at that time. Like a cousin that I had a couple cousins that was athletes, and I used to run and play basketball with him and things like that in the neighborhood, but it wasn't one of those things. When it was over, I always left. I don't want to do this no more. So
Right.
he has a different relationship with me. And then there's another that actually really understood me at an early age. He went to prison. So here I am. I'm out here alone again, At least that's the way I felt.
Right.
And so I left home at a very, very early age, at the age of 15. I moved to Washington, D.C. in 1990, and I stayed there for 2 years. I was in Job Corps. I had dropped out of school and went to Job Corps and got my GED. And I was there 2 years. And I tell you what, I had the time of my life. I was around people that didn't know me, and people pretty much just let me be. And so I was just able to just exist at that
Mm.
moment. I guess a part of me was still being drawn to why am I here? Why am I
Like
here?
like
Right.
the what's the word I'm looking for? The rhetorical question of why am I here on earth type thing? Like why am I a
Yeah.
human? Why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why am I like why do I exist?
Got it.
Has always been my question. Because when you move around, and it goes a little bit more into the journey, but I had moved away from home and I was perfectly fine without my family for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what sort of kid does that, right? And I was going, I don't belong there. I knew I didn't belong there.
Right.
And I just felt out of place. So here I am in DC for 2 years, and I meet my oldest daughter's mom. And when, let's see, 92, let's see, we moved to Colorado. And that's a story all in itself. So damaged parents, right? I made some choices, and it cost me. My life became unsuitable for a child, and so it became. And what I mean by that, I had went from walking away from a gang to run right back into it again in a different area.
Mm,
About that lifestyle that drew me into it. It was more of, I don't have to show emotions being here. I don't have to trust the people that are around me, and I had good reason for that, especially some of the things that you see. And so the violence ensued and it just engulfed my life. And my life became this place where survival of the fittest wasn't even a phrase. It was like either you're going to survive or you're going to die.
Okay, I have a question though.
Yes.
You said, because I just want to understand, you don't have to trust the people around you. Was that as far as the gang went, or as far as home life, or outside of the gang went?
This is when my life had turned into the gangs. It went right back into it. So
Right.
when you round your family, there is a certain level of trust, security with them.
Right.
And a lot of times I didn't feel that
With your own family.
with my own family because of some of the things that was happening to me or was going on in my life at the time. I didn't feel safe or secure. So I had to build myself up to feel that within myself. And it pushed me away from everything. I didn't feel it with the gang. No, because when you're in a gang, the first thing that you learn is that yes, these people are from the same neighborhood as you, but don't don't be misunderstood. They will kill you. They will kill you. And a lot of people go, "No, it wasn't like that." And deep down inside, they'll have to face the truth of the people that you're around inside the gangs. You've seen them do things to people that you know. And so
That's
for me
painful.
to, well, it's not painful. It's an understanding.
Oh, okay.
It's a sort of understanding, right? Like, yeah, we run in the same neighborhood together. I will do bad things to you if I feel that you cross me, and these are supposed to be people that you're supposed to trust. So for me, having an understanding of that helped me stay to myself, not let anybody, which was fine with me. I
Mm.
didn't have to let anyone in, and it gave me a reason to do bad things to people.
So now you
It
had an
really is
excuse.
an excuse. I don't trust you. So one wrong move, we're gonna have problems. And so that's the way I lived my life for a very, very long time. I was going, I don't have to let people get close to me because if I let people get close to me, what I learned early on is that people will hurt you. To protect myself, and that's really where my journey started. It became more of I got to protect myself from the people around me. I don't understand the people. I don't want to understand them. I don't want people to get close to me. This is perfectly fine. I can move around. I can do what I need to do and take life as it comes. There's a certain sense of emptiness that comes with that,
Right.
not letting people in and things like that. And I learned valuable lessons throughout that. I did have really good friends that I let in and everything, only to lose them. One friend, he was killed by a skinhead, and that was in prison. Another friend of mine, he was killed on his motorcycle. Real good friend of mine. Another friend of mine overdosed. His heart exploded through a drug overdose. So those things kind of like add up throughout
Yeah.
time. On top of my personal losses with my family members, is that would explain a lot of my life. And when I got older, went to prison, got out, was homeless for a long time, which was even, and it's going to sound strange, but being homeless, I didn't have to be in one place for very long. I lived out of a backpack.
Can you tell? I want to understand that. What was the day in the life of being homeless?
Cold on most days.
Okay.
It was being homeless like that was I had no direction, and it was survival for me became a way of that. Where am I going to sleep tonight? What How am I going to eat tonight? Where am I going to end up today? Is for the most part because when you're homeless, you have no point of direction. You have no place to call yours and everything. So everywhere,
But
anywhere. But the thing is, it comes with rules. You got to be somewhere where the cops aren't going to mess with you. You have to be somewhere where you can physically and mentally and emotionally feel safe without having to worry about is someone going to come and try to stab me while I'm asleep tonight. You
oh,
know, those
yeah.
type things. And so I got my addiction. I'm an alcoholic, right? So my addiction began to manifest itself.
While you were homeless.
I teeter-tottered in it when I was a game banger, but it really started to come out when I was homeless.
Okay, so you're homeless.
Mhm,
You're trying to find safety,
mhm.
and it's hard, and you're constantly trying to hide. You didn't choose. Now, I want to clarify this, because I don't think you chose homelessness. I think it happened.
It did. It's a rating phrase, and I laugh at it now, but it's a phrase that came from Spartacus. And the wife was telling the husband at the time, she goes, "You're destined for great and unfortunate things," right? So, I look back on it, I go, wow, how did that fit my life? Right? Because you look back on your life after a certain time, you go, wow, this, and this. This had an effect on this. Because in order to be who I am right now, I had to go back on my life to pinpoint where I actually started having problems. Where did the emptiness start to develop?
Right.
What was going on? So, I pinpointed those things, and going forward,
So it's manifesting. We were talking about how the
yeah,
alcoholism was manifesting during this. So you're trying to feel safe, and maybe did it help numb those feelings that you hadn't even learned how to express or interpret?
it numbed me. It numbed me all the way around. So it became. I knew that the pain that was inside of me caused the emptiness. But it was like that. It was a numbing pain, and it was one of those things that really just annoyed me,
Okay.
and
So
didn't
you
know
didn't
what to
know
do.
what to do with it. You had no
I didn't
idea
know
what
what.
to do with this pain.
Yeah.
It just
So,
get
yeah,
away from it.
alcohol was a way for me to escape that. But in turn, what it did, it made me a very dysfunctional individual.
Okay. Tell us
I
what
was
that means to you.
It means that I was a functioning alcoholic, but I was a dysfunctional human being. So I was
Okay.
so dependent on the alcohol to function that what functioning looked like to me was dysfunctional to most people. Like, I was okay with spending all the time in the bars and stuff like that, playing pool. That's all I did was drink. I went to work, drank, and got into fights. And that's all I did. So dysfunctional lifestyle, right? I'm homeless. What you gonna do? Lock me up? Go ahead. Okay. That gives me a couple nights off the street. It became normal for me. So if I got into a fight and went to jail, I used to always tell myself, at least my mother knows where I am,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that comes from years and years. I used to be able to go years without talking to my mom, right? But when we talked, it was my mom was so happy. My sister was so happy. Where are you at now? And when you hear that so many times, where are you at now? You're like, wherever I want to be at that time. I wanted wherever I wanted to be. So I moved around a lot because being homeless, not having a home, I don't have responsibilities. So I moved all across Colorado, moved all across the states and things like that. Met some interesting people, and but that alcohol was a beast. It turned me into a bad person, really bad
So
person.
you got worse. So you'd already been to jail. You're homeless. You're
Mhm.
traveling now. And when you say it turned you into a bad person, what does that mean?
It means that I started robbing people for my addiction. I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but there was times where, sleeping out on the streets for 4 months, or 6, 7 months, however long it would be at in those spurts and things like that, you run out of money because
Yeah.
your alcohol is requesting you spend this money to come get it. And so I did. I sacrificed. I was going, I got $5. I can go get 2 bottles of this and be okay, but I want to sleep in a bed tonight, but I have no money. I'm not going to go out here and panhandle. I guess pride got in the way. And so what I would do is that I would find people to beat up and take their
Mm.
money from them. And so it did. And so comic used to come back and get me left and right, after things like that. I go, well, at least I can sleep in a motel room tonight, take a shower and sleep in the bed. But I know I have to be gone by the morning. So what is the next day? So that was my life. That was my life.
Seems
And
like
you know,
scrambling almost just every day. You're
and that's
nodding
what it
your head
was.
yes.
It's the truth. It was a scramble every day. Every day it was a hustle. Every day I had to be on some sort of scheme to be able to eat, or I'm going to starve. And after a while, you don't want to do that anymore. Like, I just felt bad. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I took my lashings. I did. I dug deep into the my addiction, and I became a really good homeless person.
So it got
For
worse.
Yeah, it got progressively worse and everything. And so then one day I run across a friend, someone whom I've known throughout some years, and they saw me and they went, "Tony, what's going on, man?" I go, I'm good. I'm okay. They were like, "No, you're not good, Tony. You're not good." I go, "No, you don't understand. I'm good." I'm okay. I'm not messing with nobody. This is where God wants me to be. This is where I'm going to be. And they go, no, Tony, come on, man, come here, come, stay with me for a little bit. Let me help you get back on your feet. Well, that works when you're not fighting an addiction. Like it's easy to get up on your feet and make the necessary adjustments to be able to feed that addiction, right? But eventually it all comes crashing back down again, right?
So even though this friend came, because
Hmm.
I think you're tying it back in. So this friend came and they lovingly were like, "Come on, we know you're
Yeah,
better than this. We see value in you." And yet you're saying that doesn't really work, and because of the addiction. So the addiction
yeah.
was still driving you at that
It
point.
was the anger. It was the addiction. When you walk around in pain so much, you look for that numbness, and so that's what I did. So you can change the clothes. You can put brand new clothes on anyone, right? And you can change their appearance, and the only thing that does is help you blend in with the people that are around you. That's all it does. It doesn't change anything inside of you, especially when now I'm in a place where I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep. And so the extra money, because I'm doing labor ready now, and I'm making $40, $50 a day, sometimes more. It don't may not seem like much, but for me, it was enough.
Yeah.
It gave me a sense of purpose to get up and go to work every day, but it also gave me a way to feed my alcoholism. So I can change the clothes and everything like that. I could put a brave face on. I could come around you, hang around with you. But my primary objective is, where's the alcohol? Where's the
Yeah.
alcohol at? Right. So that's it. It was a social. I began what most people may say using it as a social drug. So I was able to turn my addiction and put on a fake face to be able to socialize with other people, because now we have something in common. We have alcohol. We can get together and drink.
So how did you transition then to recovery?
To recovery. That was a battle in itself.
Well, I wanted that point of the story that shows hope, that
Yeah.
you're, because it sounds like you're at the very bottom, and even when you're there, someone's saying you're valuable, and yet that alcohol, the pull of the addiction is so hard that
Oh, yeah.
even though you have this value and you can change your clothes and you can look like you're participating in society again, you're still battling this demon inside of you, kind of.
Well, that leads into the next one. So here I am, my friend. He's helping me out, and so I'm sort of getting a sense of responsibility, right?
Mhm.
And it's like we're gonna get through this. But the problem is that he's an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic, so it kind of works out, right? And so I remember one day I was renting out of his garage at the time. He had a room in his garage, and I was paying him X amount per month. I had a place to go. I had food in my stomach. I feel pretty good. And I meet another good friend, or another man that comes along, and we end up becoming friends afterwards. And he had a house in Denver that just came available, and I'm going, I've never really had a house before. I never really had a home before. I've
Mm.
always lived with people or lived on the streets and bounced around and all of these things. So I'm going, okay, let's see what this is about. So he ended up renting a house to me. So now I'm really, really happy. Now I'm going, this is what it feels like to have your own.
Mm.
I have a huge yard, dog run, it's a one bedroom house, and it was just beautiful. It was perfect for me. And that right there, I think, is what kind of sparked everything to me going into recovery, or putting myself. I didn't even know where recovery was. A good friend of mine, another good friend of mine, Donna, she goes, "Man, what are you going to do now?" I said, "I'm going to stop drinking." She looks at me. She goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, it's about time, Tony. Like, we was getting kind of worried about you." And she goes, "What are you going to do? AA or anything like that?" I said, "No, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do it for myself." So I locked myself in the house. I remember it was a weekend. I locked myself in the house for that weekend, didn't come out the house, and just went through the motions. I went through it. I fought it for the weekend, and then fighting the temptation, because I began to develop a mindset of, this is not going to beat me. It's not going to keep having control over me. So I have to reclaim that part. And so I did. So going to work and doing the job that I'm doing, talk about shakes and things like that, but I came through.
So
I,
did you have doubts though when you're going through
oh
detox
yeah,
and
oh
then
yeah.
those next weeks? And how did you get over those doubts? How did you handle that?
I guess you could say that's where I started digging into my faith,
Okay.
so to speak. It was, I'm going through these things, I'm going through the shakes. The weeks are going by and they're horrible. The nights I can't sleep. All I want is a drink, right? But I was going, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be a victim to my own self, you know? So I developed a sense of strength. And I remember talking to my mother and she goes, baby, pray about it. Put in God's
Pray.
hand. And I go, you know, me and God, we haven't been on the best pages throughout my whole entire life. She laughed, right? And she goes, but baby, he loves you anyway. You're going to need some help and you're not going to seek it from other people. Why don't you try this for a little bit? And if it doesn't work, it's not hurting anything, right? You
Yeah.
know? Okay. So I began putting it in God's hands. I go, look, I don't want to be like this anymore. What help me get through this? So I began to rely on him a lot more and dug deeper into it. And so it's that my journey began to actually take shape and everything. Yeah, and at least I thought it was. At least I thought
Yeah.
it was. And then I remember I ended up going out for my birthday. And I told myself, just one, right? And I fell right back
It
real
didn't take
hard.
that much. It just took the
It,
one.
it took the one because my friends were like, let's go out for your birthday, Tony. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go party and stuff, right? And I went out there and I'm going, you know, I'm strong enough. I think I can have one beer, right? So I take that and I sip on it and go, oh, this tastes real good, right?
Mm.
They say, you know, I got 8 beers down. Now I'm a fool on the floor. And it was so bad.
So something you said about your mom was love any he loves you anyway, speaking
Yeah.
about God, right? Which reminded me of this quote by Mother Teresa.
Mm.
People are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people may accuse you of selfish motives. Do good anyway. If you're successful, you may win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and transparency make you vulnerable. Be honest and transparent anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People who really want help may attack you if you help them. Help them anyway. Give the world the best you have and you may get hurt. Give the world your best anyway. And I
Mm.
think that that's what you're learning to do through this journey.
Right. Yeah.
Love
This is
anyway.
help anyway and be true to you who you are. Be true to
Right.
yourself, right? I didn't know what that was. You know, when we think about the differences in cultures and things like that, we hear the success stories, right? But we
Yeah.
don't hear the journey of what it took to get to that point.
Right.
And it's being true to who you are. And sometimes it takes a long time to figure out who you are. And so I've been on a journey of this rediscovering me.
Well,
Redis-
right. And you thought you had,
Mhm.
right? And you find yourself out on your birthday and you're on the floor again.
Yeah, I'm on the floor.
And
It didn't take long.
did you mentally beat yourself up for that? Or how did you recover from that after that?
It took a long time for that one. So
Okay.
that one leads into where I meet my son's mother. And this is where the journey actually starts to take form and how what comes after that kind of shaped who I am today. So it's a journey of purpose. It's a journey of rediscovering who I was after all of this.
Okay.
So I meet my son's mother.
Are you drinking
We're
still when you
drinking.
meet?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. It was
Okay.
my thought was, and hopefully no one takes this wrong, but she was supposed to have been a one night stand
Okay.
because now that I have a place, I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep at the night, right? Even though I had a lot of one night stands, I was very promiscuous. Oh yeah, let's go. One of the craziest places going. How in the world did I end up here? So my addiction added another facet in because before when I was drinking, I wasn't going out being promiscuous and things like that. This time I was going, okay, I got a home. I'm gonna take advantage of this. I'm a bachelor, right? So every weekend, that's what it was. We drank and I ended up in places where I still can't remember to this day. And
Wow.
so I meet my son's mother drinking and she was supposed to be in a one night stand and she kind of stuck around a little bit. So I was like, okay. And she was an even worse alcoholic than me. So I'm like, okay, well, we're going to have fun. This is what we do. Well, she ended up getting pregnant. And I lived in Denver at the time. She lived in Loveland. That's how I ended up in Loveland. So here I am. I moved out of my place. I'm moving in with her. And here she is pregnant. We're drinking. And I'm going, okay, how does this work? Now she's not drinking and I'm drinking. I'm going, okay, at some point I have to make a choice. So I stopped again while she was
Okay.
pregnant. And December 18th, 2006, my son was born. And he was born 7 days before Christmas. And I'm still teeter-tottering within my alcoholism. And within that time, his mother and I had separated. I'm homeless again, right? So here I am back out on the streets. My son is now born. The relationship between his mother and I is not there. It's horrible. Just brutal. And so here I am, sleeping in my work van at the time. And I was blessed. I was truly blessed. This is where I started looking at the blessings. I was blessed. I was able to get into a two-bedroom apartment.
Mm.
Actually able to start to have a friendship with his mother. And she began to let me see my son. Well, she was under the impression that we was going to get back together. Didn't happen. All hell breaks loose. So now karma comes back and bites me again. I get evicted out of the apartment that I'm in. 2 years being homeless again. His mother caused so much chaos in my life. I was fired from 4 jobs.
Ouch.
And I'm going, why? So now she's taking me to court to see my son. She's not letting me see my son anymore. So of course, what do? You're not gonna let me see my son. I'm going right back to drinking again.
Right.
So I did. Homeless, going right back to drinking, fighting the courts because I knew that it was going to be a battle. So 2.5 years of that. And I finally, after 2.5 years of bouncing around and sleeping on people's couches and doing the whole homeless thing again, I'm going, something has to change, right? And so one day I remember I meet someone and she and I begin dating. And this is where I get blessed again. So you know, she she tells me to come move in with her. Okay, I move in with her. She leaves after 6 months and leaves me this. So it's like, how in the world does this happen, right? And so I was going, how do I get an apartment? This is not my apartment, but the landlord calls me and go, hey, I know that you're living there now, and I know that this person has left. Would you like to stay there? Well, yeah, why not, right?
Right.
And so that's where I was at for a very long time. And so the battle with CPS, with the court systems to try to get my son be a part of his life and everything, that that ensues, and it's brutal. They beat the crap out of me.
So when you say brutal and beat the crap out of you, is it the emotional feelings that come along with it, or are there? I mean, I'm sure that court. I know court is not fun. It's never fun, but I think in family court probably there's a lot more personal attacks of why this other person should not and cannot be a
hmm
parent.
Well, and that's pretty much what it was. So being a man going through the courts for a child, you already have one strike against you. They already have a perception of you being a deadbeat dad. Not do any wrongdoing of your own, but through the conversations that the mother usually had with them.
Well, in society too, right? So
By
society
yourself,
says
right? You know what I'm saying? We're already labeled. We're already
right, and
labeled.
and so you've got all this pain inside too that you never learn to label those emotions anyway,
Right.
and now you're there and you're thinking and you're just drinking again because court is tough and it's personal and it's hard and it's painful, I'm thinking.
When you go into a place that says that they're all about equality across the board, and you feel like that, and then you realize there really isn't,
Yeah.
because now everything that they can do whatever they want to you. I
Right.
don't think the system is designed to help men succeed. I really didn't feel like it. Took me 2.5 years of being ridiculed, of being bashed, of being having to jump through all of these hoops and everything like that. And not once did they come to me and ask me anything about me.
The court system.
The court system never even came to me to ask me anything about me. They took it all from her, and they already had a vendetta against me. And I'm going, I didn't do nothing to you, let alone do anything to her.
So like
And
in
so,
mediation and stuff, no one ever said, who
oh,
are you?
Oh my God, if you would have sat through one of my mediations, you would have got up and walked out the door. I had to take it. If we went to mediation, it's supposed to be, you know what I'm saying, equal across the board. I sat there in one mediation for 2 hours while this woman, while my son's mother belittled me, talked down to me, just bashed me all across the board. And the people that was supposed to stop it just let it go on. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, so are we done? And they looked at her and they looked at me. I said, I could have told you this was going to happen. As a matter of fact, I told you this was going to happen. And yet, this is what I tried to avoid. And you guys put me in here and you let her just do it to me.
So it's like you had a witness to the emotional
Right.
trauma that you had experienced, and now you're in the court system and they're watching it, and no one is saying stop.
Wait, anything. You know what they did after that? They went to go. So we're going through. We're about 2 years in, and so now we're going for child support. And they were going to charge me like almost $2,000 a month for my son. And I'm going, okay, you can have that $2,000. It's rightfully his. I'm more than willing to pay child support. It's not like that. I'm not. I want to take care of him. So my mindset at that time, even though I'm battling my addiction with alcoholism, my mindset is I need to be there for him.
Right.
I want to be a better father. I want to be a better man. I want to take the journey, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be a part of his life, because I know what it's like to be alone in this world. And
oh wow, you just brought that full circle. I know what it's like to be alone. I've been alone for what, at that point, 30 some odd years.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, I don't want my son to feel that way.
Right. See, with my daughter, she had someone there that would protect her. And because my life, I made some bad decisions. And I don't regret not being there with them, because it was safer for them to be where they were. And it was easier for me to navigate my life without worried about if something bad was going to happen to them. So now I'm bringing this full circle. I'm seeing the struggle, and I'm going through it, and I'm determined now. I'm going, no matter what you do to me, I'm not going to give up, because I need him just as much as he's going to need me. So I did. I started going through it, and I told the courts that last time, I said, no matter what you do to me, I'm not going to stop. Only thing I wanted to do is be a part of his life. What she's told you, rightfully so. If I would have heard those same things, I would be mad at me too. But the truth of the matter is, and I'm going to say this in front of her, what she's saying is false. She's been stringing you guys along, and in turn, I'm catching the wrath from her stories that she's telling you. And I told the judge, and I told everyone around, I said, you guys should be ashamed of yourself that out of all of this, no one ever came to talk to me. You don't even know me. You know a name and you know stories that she's told you, but you don't know me. You never once talked to me, but you was quick to judge me. And you guys should be ashamed, because you're supposed to be the role models for everyone else. I said, this is not good, but it's okay. Whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do, just to prove to you that I'm not the bad guy here. Well, lo and behold, I was blessed shortly after that. Everything that I had been trying to tell CPA had finally come to light. His mother, she was already verbally and physically abusive towards her kids and everything. And her alcoholism was a lot worse than mine. Let's just put it that way. And so she ended up getting caught. And so that began the journey of me getting my son. So after all this time,
I see a tremendous amount of strength and courage in you. When I hear what you said in the courtroom, it said, you know what, I've been falsely accused. This hurts. I don't like it. And I understand why, because of these other stories. And I will do what you need me to do, because it was that important to you, and you knew who you were. And I think that at that point you had enough courage, not even courage. What am I trying to, self-esteem?
Resilience.
I know who I am. Yeah, resilience. I know who I am. And that's all that really matters in this moment, is that I know who I am, and I will do that so that you know who I am.
Exactly. So it's a matter of proving myself to people. I've never tried to prove myself to nobody. But at this time, something inside of me just said, you're going to have to prove yourself. You're going to have to show them who you truly are if you want him. Like, this is not going to be easy. And I went, okay, all right. I know it's not going to be easy. What do I need to do? What are the next steps? And what are the next steps to get me closer to my end goal? So I did. I followed that through. I get my son, and now I'm the happiest man around, right? Because now
Yeah.
I got custody of my son. I finally got the one thing I was striving for. Well, I have a problem. I have a couple problems. One, I don't know what it's like to be a man,
Oh, shoot. That's
right?
right. We
I
never
don't know
rounded
what
back to that, did we?
I, I don't know what it's like to be a man. I don't know what it's like to be a father. You know what I'm saying? Let alone now that I have this beautiful baby boy, what am I supposed to do?
So confusing.
Yeah, it's so confusing, right? So I said, okay, first things first. I need to surround myself with good men so I can learn what it's like to be a better man, right? And so I did. I started going to a all men's group, and I started going there on the weekends and learning and being around other men. I finally understand what it's like to be supported around other men. I'm watching examples. I have really good examples. These men are strong men of faith.
Right.
And so their courage, their resilience, their stories. I'm sitting here, in these groups and everything, learning, and I realized that these men are just like me, no matter the color that they are. These men are
Yeah.
just like me. And so, yes, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place, right? So I'm going to these groups, I'm learning, and so now I'm going, okay. I'm understanding what it's like to be a man from these different perspectives. So I have to start taking these good values that I'm learning and start implementing them into my own day-to-day life, right? And so I did, and I noticed a change in who I was becoming. My alcoholism, the addiction was still there, and but it wasn't in control of me anymore. It was, but it wasn't. So, and what I mean by that is that it was still there. It was still calling my name. It was still giving me some sort of comfort, being able to numb what I was going through.
Right.
And it wasn't in the same sense as that I didn't have to get up and have it. I didn't have to wake up at 3 o'clock to have my first shot of Jim Beam or my first, bottle of tequila or whatever, at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was able to sleep a little
Oh,
bit more,
wow.
become more restful. And it's because now my mind is switched over. I want to learn more about being a man, you know,
Yeah.
and things like that. So they became my unspoken mentors and things like that. They became unspoken mentors. And I'm going, man, if only they knew the amount of respect that I had for them and what they're giving me, this is priceless. And so as that goes on, now I have to learn how to be a father. I didn't have any good role models around, right? I didn't.
Mm.
So now my relationship with God, this is where it starts to get very, very intimate. I started pursuing a relationship with him. I go, who's the best father I know? God. Okay. I'm gonna have to start using examples to help me become a better father. Right.
Yeah.
So my mother said, talk to God as if he's your best friend. Talk to him as if he's your father. Start talking to him and build this relationship with him as if you are his child. So,
Wow.
okay. So I started asking questions. What is this? What does this mean? How can I become better? How can I be a better father to my son? And he began opening up doors. He began to be my example. And my relationship with my son changed. And alcohol became a thing of the past. It was like, this is more important. I want to, not only am I building a relationship with God, but I'm building a better relationship with my son because now, he's opening up. He had a rough childhood as well, being going through the system, being bounced out of his mom's home, all these other things. And here I am, this man, trying to be a good influence on him. And our relationship was beautiful. It was beautiful. He went with me everywhere. I took him to school, picked him up from school, all of these things, play dates, going out, father son dates, and things like that. I know it sounds strange, right? But me and my son, we had a day out of every week that we would go to like Applebee's and just have a father son,
You know
so to
what I'm
speak.
hearing? I'm hearing, and this is something I say, I have 2 teenage girls. They taught me who I am.
Yeah.
Having children, more than anything, has taught me
Hmm.
who I am and what I stand
Yeah.
for. And I'm hearing that in your stories that by the time, even with all that struggle in there with not being able to have your son and the whole dynamic of that high conflict divorce and everything, he still, at the end of the day, God placed him in your home. And because of that, you were able to find value and you were able to start asking that question: God, what do you
Hmm.
need me to do? What would you have me do?
And so I started looking at examples. I started looking at the relationship that other people have with him and things like that. And it made me want to pursue that more. It made
Yeah.
me want to pursue that relationship and have these conversations and things like that. And that's when my relationship with God changed. It was more of, okay, I'm your child. So I have a whole lot to say. And so that's what I tell people. I say, we have this where we argue and, he'll tell me to do something. Now I'm a rebel. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to, no, Tony, no. And all of this. So,
That's
having that
funny.
relationship is fun. But I also understand the road that he's placed me in. So then we go back, just touch base on this a little bit. So now my son, right? So now I have custody of him. Our relationship is going good. Alcohol is a thing of the past now. I'm focused. I'm rediscovering who Tony really is as a man and as a father, but as a role model and as an example, not just to my son, but I knew he was always watching me, but it was other people that watched the relationship that I have with my son. And they used to always compliment me. They'd be like, man, I wish I had that sort of relationship with my child. And I go,
Yeah.
you can have that, but you have to start seeing the world through their eyes, not the eyes that you have, because you've been corrupted through your trauma, through life. And now you see life totally different. You need to see it through theirs in order to have a relationship and have understanding. See it through the eyes of a child. It'll change
Yeah.
your whole world, your whole perception of it. And so our relationship blossomed and everything. There's a huge amount of trust. There's a amount of security between both of us because of his life. It took him a while to warm up to me, even though I'm his father, right?
Yeah.
But his life taught him too that, hey, people leave me. I'm waiting for you to leave me. So I had to prove to him that I wasn't going to leave him. I know it sounds strange because most people go, well, you just tell him. No. It's so much more than that. You have to build that relationship. You have to build that security. I had to build a sense of a safety net for my son so he knew that I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, because telling him and showing him are two totally different things. Because you can tell someone
That
all day long.
Mhm.
Showing them, though, is
It's
different.
totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
that's what I
so
did.
what a fascinating story to finding healing and what
Yeah.
it took for you to find value in yourself. So what are 3 things that you would like the audience to know about this journey of life and the human experience and maybe some tools that they can find that can help them find hope?
Well, I'm about to quote a friend of mine. Hope is possible if you want it. Be brave enough to explore different avenues of who you are in order to develop yourself properly. And if you're going through something tragic or that changed your life in a way to where it makes you feel empty, allow yourself to feel. Allow yourself to express those emotions that you're going through. Don't hold it. Even though you may feel empty inside, those emotions are still there. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to feel, and you come out on the other side so much better. And the tools that are there are individual. So I want you, if you're looking for those tools, look for those things that have stuck with you, that have brought you comfort and security throughout your life, and implement those in a way in your life to where it makes a huge impact for yourself and finding value in the things that you do. That's the key to it.
Well, I'm really glad that I have gotten to have you here today and that I've gotten to hear your story and be part of your journey. I think you're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words as well.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Relatively Damaged by Damaged Parents. We really enjoyed talking to Tony about how he took responsibility for his choices and found a way to live a productive and giving life. We especially liked it when he spoke with an abundance of love for his child. To unite with other damaged people, connect with us on YouTube. Look for Damaged Parents. We'll be here next week, still relatively damaged. See you then.